Thanks everyone for for joining this webinar. We are super excited to have you today. We are going to talk about like interesting topics on paid media, product feeds, product data in general. And yeah, so this webinar is presented to you by Thrive, by NOVOS. What is Thrive? This is a series of events, webinar, contents. We have our newsletter. Quick information before we start, we will organize a roundtable on the 6th of August in London at the Ivy Victoria. So after this presentation, this webinar, like if you want to join us, please send us a message, let us know. Um, so yeah, quick intro. So that's the topic of today. Creative is the new targeting. How do you scale e-commerce, paid media performance in 2026? This is presented by NOVOS and Athos Commerce. John, do you want to give a quick introduction about yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm John Brolly. I head up partnerships in EMEA for Athos Commerce. For those that don't know, Athos Commerce is a product discovery platform, next generation. We have the ability to power offsite and on-site discovery journeys for consumers, work with brands, retailers, enterprise, merchants as well.
Great, thanks, John. And just quick intro about myself. So Benoit Legendre, paid media director at NOVOS. At NOVOS, we help e-commerce businesses to be the answer in 2026 with SEO, GEO, digital PR, and recently paid media and creative production, working with great clients such as Fort Glade. I think they're on the call today. Vitabiotics, Tala, Osprey, The Body Shop. Well, great brands and many more. So what do we have on the agenda today? The key two parts is how do we generate demand? Second part is how to capture it. But we will give a bit more context about like the meta algorithm, why it changed, and how you can adapt. We will give you like a few recommendations on how to capture demands and to avoid wasting your budget. And we will also talk about like how can you make the upper funnels communicate with the bottom funnel strategy, with the product feed, SEO, landing pages as one system. So yeah, we should start with the content.
Just before we start, guys, there is a Q&A. We will run towards the end, so feel free to drop any questions into the Q&A box, and we'll pick up at the end of the presentation. Thank you.
Great. So yeah, just a little quote to start this webinar. We think that the brands winning in 2026 are not the ones that are going to double their budgets, but these are the ones that are going to run better systems. And this is really the conversation today. We are going to talk about like implementing systems and ensuring that you can generate demand effectively and capture it the best way as possible. So let's crack on with this third part, generate demand with the creative system. So as you probably know, like at the end of last year in October, a new algorithm was released on Meta called Andromeda. And there is a fundamental difference with this algorithm because previously you used to have a set of creative, pick your audience and target your ICPs, relevant audience, etc. What has really changed is that now when you upload creatives on Meta, you don't decide to who is going to be served. It's Meta that is going to decide this. And how do they do this is basically they analyze your ads and they run some probabilistic models to understand which ads to match with which user. So basically, if you have the same ads 20 times, you are not likely to expand your reach. And that's a real question we have today for most e-commerce brands. The creative is becoming the targeting itself. So you need to have diverse assets in the accounts and you need to have a strategic volume. The thing is that if you still operate your Meta accounts, like in 2025, you might see some rising CPAs, ad fatigue, eating quicker, and you might be stuck at the bottom of the funnel on Google Ads, might be investing too much on brands and get short-term gains. So yeah, we are going to give you some methodology around creative to generate demands. Just a few numbers. So these studies are a bit old, to be honest with you, but what I want to say with these numbers is that the creative is the most important lever that you have at your disposal to drive performance on Meta. And this is where you should focus on if you want to learn and iterate quicker than your competitor. So what I would say, and I will not exaggerate, but I think that creative is now a system problem, but not really a production problem. I will explain this on the next slide. It's now easy to generate creative static images with AI, upload them to the platform. But I think this is the what you really need to build for your brand is the system. What it takes to keep up is like you need to refresh the creative constantly. You need to adapt the creative to different formats, videos, static images, change the hooks, identify winning ads, and iterate on them. But to be honest, with my experience in paid media, the reality with agencies and brands, or if you just have your marketing team in-house, is you produce like assets on a monthly or sometimes on a quarterly basis just for the promotions. And when the campaign is finished, the creative insights ends up in a monthly deck or QBR deck with just a few slides, and we never really learn from the creatives and we never really apply the recommendation to the next batch. So this is what we are going to talk about here is this system to improve your creative system. So when I say like production is not really a problem, it's because most of the biggest platforms are releasing their asset studio. You probably have seen this on Google Ads. You have the asset studio. You can generate static images, videos. Meta has invested like billions into their AI to generate creative and their LLMs basically. You have the same on TikTok. Amazon has released also a creative studio, and you can probably see a lot of platforms emerging to create videos with AI. One of the constraints I would say, like as a marketer, is you just using like the Google Ads Asset Studio, for example, has quite a lot of limitation because this is just their model. You can just use Nano Banana. You have quite a lot of constraints within the tool. And ultimately, there is no learning memory within the platform. You cannot input your brand or persona context. And this is not really a system. You don't really learn continuously. And I wouldn't see myself really to produce some creative assets on Google Ads and then run them on Meta. So, but what I would say is like these tools are super powerful, evolving very quickly. If you haven't tried them, I would invite you to test them and see how you can exploit them at the best. But yeah, like I would say like there is no system with these tools, and this is like what you can build. So in this first part, we will break down this in 4 parts. This will help you to audit the current creative system that you have because your brand must have a creative system in place, even if it's not perfect, etc. So I want to give you like the methodology to break it down step by step and try to understand where you can improve it. So for main parts, plan, produce, test, and learn. And if we break down the creative production in these 4 different parts, you can see clearer where you need to improve. And the more you iterate on this loop, the more you are going to feed your learning knowledge with creative. And this is going to be your creative advantage. So one of the first questions you can ask if you start from nothing, a new brand or even like an existing brand, is how much do you need? How much volume do you need to create? So my recommendation for this is you need to start by checking how much you spend on creative-led content. So when I say creative-led content is how much you spend on Meta, TikTok, YouTube combined, could be Snapchat, so all the creative-led channels. And you need to understand how much you want to test per month from this budget. We have created a calculator on our website. If you want to use it, it's free. You can, based on your creative-led budget, you can see how many creatives you need to produce in all the different formats. So it helps you a bit more to understand like how many creatives do I need to produce on a monthly basis, quarterly basis in order to keep up with the ad fatigue. What I would say about planning in general is don't allocate all the creative production budget at the bottom of the funnel. Try to allocate some of this creative production budget on the consideration and awareness campaigns because this is how you are going to build brand equity on the long term. Also, like the creative production needs to reflect your business priorities. So categories to push, if there is any seasonality or promos. So align basically your creative production with what your business actually need and push on the personal campaigns. And ultimately, like if you want to integrate brand DNA and persona, this should be reflected like on your PDP and feeds and ultimately on your AI campaigns. So when we can start like from the very beginning, we have like 3 different levels like on how to plan and look what to produce when we know exactly how many creatives we want to generate. I would say like go and look. You have these amazing tools like the Meta library. I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but you can now filter by impression. So you can look at your top competitors' ads and see what's working for them. So when you do this, you are not copying anything. You can just try to understand like what's working, what's not working, and readapt this type of creative to your business. When I say like working, not working, you can look at the hooks, the static images they have, and try to reproduce the same for your business. So the thing is, this is very time consuming. You can do it manually, but it depends on who has time. It might take you an afternoon per month or even more. If you want to, if you have the marketing budget, you can automate this in a way. You can use third-party tools like very good ones such as GetHooked.ai and Kalo Data. However, these tools are quite expensive, so it's adding up like on top of the other tools in your Martech stack. And level three, if you want to build a custom system, you have very good API such as API, which allows you to fetch and to scrap all these creatives from this different like library, analyze them with AI, and feed the brand persona into the system. So that's more like for a custom system, but that would require like some people developing this internally with tools like Cloud Code. So when I say AI production, don't get me wrong. I think like all brands should work with creators. This is a massive opportunity, but it might be expensive to work with paid partnerships and generate like creative with creators. But I would say that AI production has a massive advantage. It's cheap. You can generate assets in minutes, and it's like you can change basically. You can iterate on your winning ads very quickly instead of waiting 2 months briefing like a creative agency, etc. So I would say the best of both worlds is like you work with creators for the trust and the unique content, and you fill the gap with AI. You can create static images and videos. Be careful about like AI, UGC video. Ensure that this content is not fake, otherwise it could damage your brand reputation. The thing I want to say is like if you want to don't know where to start with AI production, you have tons of tools on the market. Some are just doing videos, some just static images, or you can build your custom tool like we did at Novos. But to name a few, Make UGC, Arcades, Riverflow, Xfield, Figma, or Canva, which are widely used by marketing teams. So just about diversity, because this is super important. Diversity is required now with the new meta algorithm. If you upload the same ad or very similar ad 20 times, Meta will consider this ad as exactly the same identity, and it will block the potential reach you could get from new creatives, and it will treat it as the same creative. So the examples you are seeing on the right here, they are pretty similar creatives, different CTAs, different color, different text, but essentially this is exactly the same creative, a woman giving like dog food to her dog, and same thing like on the left hand side. But what diversity is really how to have diversity in your accounts. We will talk about this later, but it's really adding like the different formats, the videos, the static images, the carousel. So for example, if your account is just running with static images, think about adding video. This will give you a lot more diversity and a lot more reach. Yeah, different hooks, different concepts and creator. On the next slide, I'm going to show you like a quick example of how you can leverage AI to generate images. So these have been generated with our tool at Novos, but this is using the latest models such as Nano Banana, GPT-2, and this is what you can do with one product. So this is an example with Fourth Blades, the cold pressed salmon product, and see what you can do with one product with AI, with different type of ads that have been like used in the past by other competitors. So this is basically these creatives are truly different. So it's the same product, but the way it's going to be perceived by the meta algorithm is like a unique creative. So with this, you will unlock new reach for this particular product, and you have diversity for the same product. I particularly like this one. It's my favorite. So again, like we are recording this call. We'll send you the deck if you want to take a screenshot. But if so, on this matrix, you can see clearly like what are the elements that will give you real creative diversity in your account. So as I mentioned before, like the format is the most important one: video, static, carousel. The product category, for example, like if you have like dog food ads versus supplements. If you can try to vary your offer, for example, a trial versus a bundle, and the vehicle. So what I call the vehicle is like if it's a UGC ad, a founder ad, testimonial or unboxing. So this will give you the higher reach and the higher the best impact when you want creative diversity. On the bottom left corner, changing the headline, the body copy, the CTA is not going to give you extra reach. This is mainly to iterate on winning ads. So if you had to focus on something, that would be on the right-hand side. So the priority swings and the audience expanders. Something about like the testing part, you need a ad naming convention in your account. So this is an example. This is not like a fixed one. You can add additional fields if you want, but essentially when you will run your ads and you will have your reporting on a weekly basis, you need to have this field to basically slice the performance to understand what worked and what didn't work. So a good way to do it, it would be like collection, product category, concept, hook, vehicle, formats, creator, and version. So yeah, ad naming convention, again, like something to implement in your accounts. How do you learn from your creative? So basically, you need to set up your custom rules. If you don't do anything, I've heard so many stories of um, agencies or brand like uploading new assets, didn't check like the performance, left the assets to spend £1,000 on a specific creative and didn't drive any conversion. You need to have rules in place to understand what's working, what's not working. Do we need to wait? Do we need to give it more time? Or do we need to iterate on the winners? When you have these rules in place, you have an action log with learnings and you can iterate basically. If you want to use a third-party tool, you can use Motion App. This is quite expensive though, but it's doing a pretty good job at fetching the data from your paid social accounts, analyzing the performance, telling you why it's working. If you're a bit more advanced, you can build a custom solution with Cloud Code and a tracker and automated reporting. So this is really important because this is how you are going to save budget and understand like what's winning, what's losing, and this is how you will learn from your creative. So just a quick slide on the benefits of having a creative system. Obviously, this is just like with illustrative numbers. So if you spend 50K per month on Meta or just creative left content, if you still optimize your creative like it was in 2025, when you will try to scale your budget, you will see strong diminishing returns. You will not be able to scale your spend with a creative system, assuming that you are testing 10% of your budget per month on new creative, trying to understand winners, what's work, what's not working. You will be able to scale because you will find more winners and you will be able to scale your budget and scale your revenue. So yeah, that's all. Like to sum up, like the creation, the how to drive demand. You can create your creative engine block by block, whether it's manual, for example, like you go and look on the meta library. You can do it in a semi-automated way with tools like motions, etc., and the tools I've listed on the deck. Or you can try to do it like fully automated with custom solution like Claude, automating the reporting, the brief, the brand context. What you need to remember is that when you have a loop, it compounds at every cycle, and this is how you get like a real competitive advantage on against your competitors. But creative generation, generating demand is just half of the job. Now we are going to talk about like how to capture these demands more effectively. And there is like something I would like to call out that I see across all Google Ads accounts. So what I see when I audit Google Ads accounts, almost 99% of the time, the brands are stuck at the bottom of the funnel and they are spending too much on brands. The thing is like, if you manage to reduce this brand budget, I'm not saying like decreasing massively the visibility that you have on brand, because obviously you need to protect it. You need to capture this demand. But if you manage to save some budget, you can reinvest it on other campaigns such as Meta or a creative system or your SEO strategy. But my recommendation as a rule of thumb is aim for 70 to 80% search efficient share on your brand campaign. Don't try to go above 80%. Above this, you will have strong diminishing returns and you will never be able to reach 100% anyway. If you look at like case studies and marketing mix modeling studies, they all say that brand is not incremental. What does it mean? It means that they are not bringing additional customers to your business. It's basically capturing demand. People would have converted anyway with or without a brand ads. So yeah, again, like investing on brand, it all depends on context. If you have resellers, if you sell on Amazon, you have plenty of marketplaces and you need to defend your brand, make sure you invest on brand, but remain within this bracket between 70 and 80% impression share. This is how you are going to capture the most important of the biggest part of the demand while reinvesting the brand budget to the more incremental campaigns. So just quick checklists on things you can do today. If that's not the case, something that I see across all accounts is try to exclude brand from PMax. In 99% of the case, that's the right call. You can capture the standard, you can capture the brand traffic, the shopping traffic with a standard shopping campaign. This is working very good, and you can have the control and the visibility on your brand visibility, and have a dedicated search campaign for brands. So yeah, my recommendation again, like stay between 70 and 80% subscription share. The only exception is during peak or very important moment of the year, you can go between 80 to 85%. Why? It's because like during that time, this is more incremental to have brand because you have your offers on your website and you want to show like the offer, like for example, 40% off for Black Friday to your customers. You can't do this with the organic results. And yeah, as I said, like if you make some savings on brand, you can reinvest it to the other campaigns like non-brand with AI Max. You can reinvest it on upper funnel with Meta. You can reinvest it on your creative engine if you need some tools, or you could also invest it on developing your website from an SEO point of view, your PDPs, your product feed. So yeah, just a quick word about AI Max. So why it exists, basically, this is not a new campaign. This is just a setting that you activate within your search non-brand campaign. And basically, Google has created this technology last year. I think it's basically to monetize all the possible auctions and queries that they can. People are not searching in the same way as before. Now, people are not just searching keywords, they are searching long tail queries. And basically, this technology, AirMax and PMax, is able to capture long tail queries. Interesting numbers, it's that last year, when it was in beta, advertisers activating AirMax, they were seeing plus 14% conversions at the same ROAS or CPA. But now, AirMax is out of beta, and Google reports plus 28% on average for the advertisers using it. So if you don't use AMX, I would strongly encourage you to try it out with a custom experiment. Yeah, and what I would like to say, and this is basically the connection with how to capture demand effectively, is like if you have poor product data, poor PDPs, product feed, AMX is not going to work. And this is just the average. We have some case studies with Google for AMX, companies doing plus 100%, 150%. What's driving this? Basically, it's if you have done the work with your product data from an SEO point of view, geo, and this is what's really going to influence AMX and the likelihood to show for these queries. John, so that's a very interesting slide. So it's just to illustrate that AMX basically is using like a mix of SEO, geo, your site content, and your product feed. Don't tell me wrong, for AMX, this is search, but with PMax, you have the same type of technology, and this is leveraging the feeds. And Google has recently launched their AMX campaign for shopping. The thing is like how AMX works is that if it has all this context, it will properly have the right outputs. It will generate the right ad copy. It will have the best landing page to send the users to, and it will also have the optimal format. So Google AMX will really be influenced by all these components. John, do you want to?
Yeah, thanks, Benoit. It's a good time for me to chime in here. So for those on the call that might not be familiar with feeds, probably most of you are, our particular tooling has been around for 17 years. So feeds are not a new thing. We're in a world now that Benoit said, earlier, he mentioned the word conversational. We're in a real shift. So we've got traditional SEO, we've got technical SEO, we've got geo and answer engine optimization all blending into one. We've got on-site assets, such as the construct of the PDP data. We've got off-site assets, such as feeds. And again, feeds aren't for just one channel, thousands of channels, which we support as well. And we're in a world where product data is key. And we've been talking that anybody in the industry has been talking heavily for the last 18 months around the importance of product data. And it's really at the forefront now. And we've seen changes and pattern changes within some of the big players, such as Google, even OpenAI, around how feeds are becoming important. Yes, they're important for the delivery for traditional PLAs, traditional ad mechanisms. But when you're enriching your product data, you should be doing so with one eye on your site, your PDP, because the PDP is becoming the king of product ownership rather than traditional listing pages. And within that PDP, the construct of the product data that you've got can also go across SEO, technical SEO, GEO, and answer engine optimization as well. So I think if we just move forward a little bit, please, Benoit, this convergence is product data is a growth lever. It's not something as an afterthought. It's not a case of building a website, putting your brand, your products on there, having an afterthought around, well, why do I need a Google shopping feed? Why do I need a particular meta feed? And just taking titles or descriptions that may well work on site, but you've got to have a strategy in place around each individual channel, because each channel will have a different schema and it will have a different audience selection process as well, as like Benoit touched on in terms of Andromeda. So product data needs a strategic viewpoint and perspective. Thanks, Benoit. Next slide, please. So as we said earlier, poor product data, and again, poor product data, it shouldn't be missing attributes. It shouldn't be missing components. Within each channel that product feeds and product data serves, both on-site and off-site, there's a set of mandatory, essential data attributes and data points. This day and age, you shouldn't be having a missing title. Missing attributes could be allowed, but thin descriptions, no longer a necessity. You need longer tail. You need to have the data that understands usage. You need to have a coherence across all your channels, not just your own channels that you own, third parties as well, such as communities as well. So the persona within the data is an interesting topic and we'll come on to. But if you don't have a data strategy in place in terms of your product data, you will fail across your ad channels. That's essentially the case. Next slide, please, Benoit. So we're going to come on to this. So from an AI visibility perspective, what the hell do we mean by that? We mean that, there is a shift into agentic. Certain LLMs are actually now serving ads in the space, especially in the US. It's going to be coming over to Europe. And again, from an ad feeding perspective, having structured product feeds into these channels are essential. Now, with that, there has to be an extension of the specification of these product feeds. There used to be 13, 14 essential data points that were required across any particular channel, but we're now in a realm where we've got more. And these new attributes are based around conversational input. They are based around agentic discovery. The way that a consumer discovers and goes through a product discovery journey is very different now than what it was 2 years ago. And it's only going to get richer. And we're in a realm and a day of higher processing capabilities, which means that retrieval process is quicker, which means that the conversational input could be more complex. And from that, you need complex but well-structured, meaningful data sets, which we then can move on to. Next, please, Benoit. So, Benoit, if you want to add a little bit more context in terms of what we're showing here, these are some of the new formats that are coming into fruition, and then I can pick up and explain what those data points are that feed into these ads.
Thank you, John. So yeah, these are the new ad formats communicated like on the Google Marketing Live conference a few months ago. So these ads, like for example, the most interesting one is this one. It's going live in the US this summer. There was no particular date. It's probably like in testing at the moment. I'm expecting this to be released like by the end of the year in the UK. So essentially, this is a new shopping ads, but this is very exciting because until now, a shopping ads was a product image, a title, and a description that you cannot see, but you could just see the price. So now this new type of ads are very rich. You will be able to search a very long tail query. For example, I need a compact espresso machine to do some iced coffee, and I want it in this color, etc. Basically, all the information you will have in your feed, the conversational attributes, all the context about your product will be summarized, and the experience will be ultra personalized for the users. The thing that you need to retain is that if you don't have these attributes in your feed, you don't have these conversational attributes that we are going to show you, you are not likely to win this auction because if you don't feed the context to Google, you won't be eligible basically for this type of ads.
Cool, Benoit. And yeah, if I pick up on these new attributes, so this is relatively recent. This is only May 2026. So as I said earlier, product feeds have been around for a number of years within our industry, and they used to be quite static. Now we're at a point where that product discovery and input changes. So the data set can be more extensive. And because of the processing capabilities, that's why that data set can be more extensive. So one of the big pushes and releases from Google in May 26 was the idea of the Q&A. So these are called conversational attributes. Now, traditionally, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, when we would run an audit on a feed, we'd be advising brands and retailers and merchants around missing what we would call product highlights as part of the specification of the feed and product detail. Product highlights would be, an indicator of how your product could be used and the satisfaction process of using that product. We're now in a realm where the Q&A or question and answer within Google and OpenAI have their own version, just called, it's a data attribute called Q_A. So it's a question and answer, named value pairs. You are limited up to 30 currently within the question and answer for Google Shopping. But the idea here is, in this example, you can ask the question, understand what consumers and what users and browsers are asking within the LLMs and the particular UIs around your product, capture these citations, these inputs, and then bring them back into your product data set. This is done at a SKU level as well. Yes, we can go in, but not for today. We can start talking about product groupings and product types and product IDs within particular groups. But from a higher level perspective, capture the questions and answers, bring them into your standard product specification. So we mentioned geo early. You could even bring these Q&A responses into elements within your structured data on site. So there's something that was released within Schema within the last few months relates to positive and negative notes. Neither a negative from a usage perspective, neither a negative from a readability perspective from in terms of the LLMs. This is data that makes the journey, the retrieval process aware of the capability and usage and review data of this particular product. Still doesn't counter the product highlight and the product detail from a Google Shopping perspective. These are still key and critical. But if you look at a Q&A, that is a general question and answer, a conversational and natural language query. Then when you look into product detail, there's certain elements that don't need to include the specification, but what things have been used for. So we come on to an example later around, pet food. Natural pet food tends to have a buoyancy and an aid around certain conditions for certain pets. Never before have we been in a circumstance where you can ask very, very much granular questions around the particular ailment that your pet may have. And the data can then contain the relevant answer. So the intent from the input on the question and the relevancy of a retrieved response should be based on a really extensive product data set. Next slide, please, Benoit.
We've got a little video. I'm going to play it. Do you want to comment on this? Should I play the video now, John?
Play the video and I'll just give a quick overview.
product feeds break more often than you think, silent errors go undetected. And when they do, your products quietly disappear from channels like Google Shopping, AI Mode, and Gemini. The issue isn't just errors, it's knowing where to start and knowing what will have the biggest impact. Optional fields, hidden issues, and disconnected data make optimization feel impossible at scale. With Athos Commerce Channel Assistant, you start with a full audit in minutes, instantly revealing what's broken, what's missing, and what's costing you visibility. It doesn't just show problems, it builds a prioritized to-do list and keeps you firmly in control. With human-in-the-loop guardrails, you can act yourself or let the channel assistant resolve issues within defined boundaries, with final approval ensuring pricing and titles are never changed without your oversight. You can see every fix applied in real time, from rule creation to updates, without exporting spreadsheets or losing control of your workflow. And as issues are resolved, product approvals rise, disapprovals drop, and impressions, clicks, and transactions increase. Channel Assistant keeps your products visible, accurate, and up-to-date, turning feed management into a scalable growth engine without increasing headcount.
Cool. So just for the audience here, this is a little internal tool that is part of our product set now, and it's our agentic workflow for auditing. So we support 1,400 different PLA channels, and this particular tool gets into the granular and understands the schema and understands the construct of these low-level attributes. The human-in-the-loop perspective means that you still have that decision. You are still part of the strategy, the data strategy that I said earlier. So this just shows the way we're going. So having tools and internal tools like we showed earlier means that you can really control your data quality and your output, and you can control it at a channel level. And I think if we just go on to the next slide, please, Benoit, we've got an example of one of our customers that has utilized the platform. And in utilizing the platform, we've got something called a label manager. So this can extend further, and then this can bring even into some of your Q&As. And when you pick out some keyword, old traditional keywords, but you're bringing and building into a particular aspect around what should you be improving on. So we have an optimization module as well, which allows for some of these changes. Could be something as simple as a change in a title. Could be something relating in this particular instance into skin tones and how certain products work really well with particular skin tones. By making changes in real time and doing A/B testing, the numbers are very, very impressive, So yes, impressions go up and clicks go up. It'll be really interesting to see how our customer uses the agentic tool as the schemas change. And I'll come on to this a little bit more in more of a moment. The way that the traditional Google schema works, if there's product highlights that are missing, it can recommend, add in highlights, do some experimentation. And then it's a natural increase in revenue because you're extending and improving your data quality where you've got missing attributes prior. So this is just an example, and this was within the Google Shopping sphere. Next slide, please, Benoit. So going back to, what can you do about it? What can we do about it? Auditing is key. Auditing is key. Many tools out there available. Once that auditing is done and there's an understanding of the missing attributes and the level of work required, you can enrich that. Automated tools available, lots of third parties. We do it. We work with third parties. Agencies should be involved as well as others. So the enrichment process could start right at the basic construct level. You can enrich at PLM and PIM level. You can enrich when you go into schema. So we support that. So when you're going out to a particular channel, we can enrich. And then with the monitoring perspective of that, you can then optimize. You can understand that performance, relate it back to the changing sphere of ads and creative. Understand how your product data sets and your product schema with ads are working in conjunction together and therefore optimize. Next slide, please, Benoit. I'll quickly talk on this and pass it over to you, Benoit. Again, we talked around the creative being, the delivery of the creative is decided by the algorithm within Andromeda and a couple other tool sets within there. So don't create personas within your obvious title and descriptions, but be subtle with it. When you're adding your Q&As, be subtle with it. As I mentioned, the dog, might be a dog, might be a dog that's got a hair loss problem. You can distinctly state that one of your products has an ability to support that particular condition. So this is around, utilizing the extensive conversational product data attributes to enable you to close that persona gap, to basically serve real personalized ads. And I don't know if you want to add anything into that, Benoit.
I think you said it all. I think what makes a lot of sense is like when you align your feeds, your product data with your personal campaigns, like on Meta, TikTok, YouTube, it's a lot more natural for the user when they search and discover your brands. If you have the same strategy, the same persona, and you communicate the same thing across discovery, awareness discovery, and conversions, they will see the same language, the same things on your PDPs, and it's going to make a difference the way they perceive your brand.
Cool. And just the next slide just shows an example. We get many on the left. You won't have no product highlights, just don't have the time to think about it. No question and answers, because most people on the call may well not have implemented Q&As into their Google shopping feeds yet. But you see on the right-hand side, the enrich for AI discovery. It's all very logical what is being stated here. It's that understanding of that end use of that particular SKU. And then you apply that across different personas, then you extend that reach and you extend that data set in very simplified terms, named and valued pairs. And again, the product highlights, that just is the basics of just ensuring that you're enriching that particular data set for that particular SKU.
Just one, if I can just...
jump in, please. Yeah.
On these conversational attributes, what you should aim is not repeating yourself. Like when you say like a specific words, try to, for example, question answers, don't repeat yourself in the product highlight. They must be unique fields. Otherwise, Google will just ignore them and you will have used like all these characters for the product highlights for nothing. So try to have like unique content in your feed for all these attributes, and they will play their role to the maximum.
Yeah. And this goes back to the word I used earlier, coherence, the coherence across the entire network. There's nothing wrong with having negative and positive notes within a schema set, because it's actually stating what a product can and can't be used for. And from a readability perspective, the LLMs love that because it's very much factual. And great point, Benoit. Do not duplicate. It's a classic statement. Don't duplicate. Try and keep things unique.
Right. So I think this is the last slide before the Q&A. So this is the full picture basically with like your persona end to end, from demand generation, from Meta, TikTok, etc. You can have a persona-led creative and generate demand. And how do you capture it? It's going to be a mix between like LLMs, PDP plus your feed, and setting up like AI Max to capture these long tail queries and ensuring that you can actually be relevant when people are searching these queries with a lot of context, and then learn from it. Like all these learnings feeds the next persona brief, next campaign brief, and next test that you want to implement in your feed. John mentioned like the A/B test. If you can't A/B test like these product attributes like product highlights, question answers, if you can't test, you can't learn. So it's always super important to have this as a next step to define what's going to be the next step. Yeah, I think that's all, John. Do you want to?
Nothing else to add other than it's an exciting time to be in the space of commerce, and I'm so glad that product data is key again, because I've been a fan of product data for 20 odd years. It probably leads us on nicely to the Q&A. We've got a couple of questions are coming around the presentation, the recording and the deck. Yes, that will be shared. Amy Hunter has delivered a really, really nice question. Great question, Amy. For the Q&A attributes in the feed, do they have to exactly match the user's search, or will Google see that question contains sensitive stomach and see it as relevant? So I'll keep this quite a high level, but from the retrieval process is the understanding of the string or the word itself in context, in its relationship within the database and the structure of the language. And that's me trying to keep it quite high level. Quick answer is they don't need to match. You are presenting your Q&A to try and cover a number of points that you will either know that your current customers or future customers are asking through the LLMs, or you might even have those ready yourself. So such a sensitive stomach, as long as that is there and contained, then that will be reported back from that retrieval process. Currently, as I said earlier, it's important to say currently limited to 30, but that isn't to say that when you create your schema and your positive notes and negative notes, you can extend. Currently, OpenAI's Q_A is limited as well, but this is very much changing. And one thing I don't think, if we both said, Benoit, this isn't static. And I mentioned the data strategy piece. It isn't do once, come back in 6 months. You need to keep this dynamically monitored. You need to make changes because the input is going to change. You need to react to that input. And ultimately, all you're doing, you're building a very comprehensive product data set that will eventually make sure you win in the future.
More importantly, like you are constantly adding new products on your website, new categories, new ranges. You need to ensure that, so yeah, the feed and product data is not a one-off task. You need to constantly check, audit, and ensure that you have these conversational attributes. Otherwise, like if you are launching a new category on the website, you don't have them, you are not likely to meet success, at least like from an AI search point of view. So yeah, definitely not a one-off task.
Cool. A few more questions, Benoit. This one, I'll hand over to you, Alex. He's supplied 3 questions. We're going to give it a go, Alex. What is the ideal split for meta campaigns? You mentioned 10% on testing. Should 90% be on winners, or should it be split with retargeting?
Oh yeah, that's a good question. The split depends really on what you want to achieve as a business. So if first, like I would say, like retargeting, be always cautious with this budget. Try to spend not maximum like 10% of your total budget, because again, retargeting depends how it is configured. But if it's website visitors or existing clients, it's not incremental. Same thing as search brand. So I would not allocate more than 10% of your budget on this. Allocate as much budget as possible to prospecting campaigns. Start with like, if you don't, it really depends on how much budget you have. If you spend 50K per month on Meta, you have a bit more flexibility than if you just spend 10K per month on Meta. So if you just spend 10K or 20K per month, you will just have one campaign basically optimizing for conversions. But if you tell me you are spending 150K or 200K on Meta, this changes the story. You will have a lot more to spend on awareness campaigns, considerations campaign, and conversions campaigns. So the budget split will really depend on your business priorities, what you want to achieve. Is it direct results? Do you want to drive sale this week? Do you want to drive sales in the next 7 weeks? Or do you want to build awareness and stay top of mind, like in your industry among your competitors? So that's the real question you need to understand. Ultimately, if you need to understand, like if you should invest more on awareness, consideration, or action, if you spend more than 100K per month on paid media in general, I would recommend to leverage like MMM solutions to understand what's truly incremental, and it will give you diminishing returns and understand exactly where you should allocate the next pound or where to reallocate the budget between the meta campaigns.
Cool.
Hope I answered the question.
Thanks, Benoit. Alex, you've got a couple of questions. I'm going to give Alex your 3rd question. I'm going to go to a couple of others, and then I'll come back to your 2nd one. How can we stay up to date with the changes so we're using the most up-to-date creative strategy? And actually, Benoit, I'm going to blend that into his 2nd one. And Alex has asked us, can you touch on the relationship between the creative strategy and UX if you don't have a UX team?
What do you mean by your UX team? How do you interpret this?
So what do you do if a CTR is good and the ads are getting customers to the right page, but the conversions aren't happening?
Yeah, so it really depends on your campaign goal. If the campaign goal is like conversions and you don't get any conversions, the creative is just not working. But again, like the platform attribution might be misleading. This is not perfect, but my opinion is that if conversion rate is not good, if you spend like, let's say like £1,000 on a creative, it didn't convert at all, I would definitely pause it for to decide like how to keep, maintain, watch or identify like winning ads. You can also use for the consideration and awareness campaign, you shouldn't use like conversions because these campaigns are not optimized to generate conversions. I would look at engagement metrics such as view rates, the first 3 seconds, like if the users are holding and watching the video, and the engagement metric like CTR and view rate basically to evaluate the performance of your creative. And you can have a benchmark basically. You can have an account average and compare them against the average. So if it's below the average, you can decide to pause them and try something else and try to iterate on the winners. I think I've answered the question here.
Yeah, Alex has put another point, but we'll come back to that, Alex, if we've got time. There's a few more want to throw in a mix. So conversational, this is anonymous, conversational attributes. This is feeding shopping ads so they know when to show. And obviously, yes, what we showed earlier is the new AI ad format. Now, the questions around AI overview results, but fundamentally what we need to be aware of here is that the GS feed, the Google Shopping feed with conversational attributes means it also gets indexed elsewhere. So it's an important strategy to have in place is to look at that extended data point, understand the input, and then you're providing a relevant relationship back. So it's not just shopping ads. It's far more important, and it builds your overall strategy. Another anonymous question. When I was talking about negative attributes from schema.org, does it support X type of thing? So yes, it is. It's a negative connotation, but which is a plus side for your product. So if your product was waterproof or showerproof, saying that, if it's showerproof, it isn't fully waterproof. And if it's water resistant, it isn't water resistant down to 100 meters. Things like that. Just very obvious. It's a usage scenario is the negative and positive attributes. Jean-Pierre Carr, work for a builders merchant called Lawson's Group, limited resources and time to create multiple creatives for Meta. What would you recommend the minimum number of variations should be? First point.
The number of variation, it all depends on the budget. So when we talk about like creative production, this is like referring to the tool we have built. Like the volume of variants and creative, it really depends on your budget. You don't want to have too many ads in your account because if you have too many ads, you will basically segment the spend across too many entities and you will never know what's working, what's not working. So my recommendations with if what you call like variants is an iteration or like just the diversity in the account, I would just look at the budget in this particular campaign if it's optimizing for conversion and ensuring that we have enough budget for each creative to learn and actually get results. Otherwise, like the data will be segmented. And I would recommend using the tool to understand like how many new creatives do you need to add to your existing accounts. Again, like if you have a campaign and you just have promo assets and you replace all the assets by new ones, this is a different question. So, you need to ensure that you have enough spend going through your creatives to ensure you can learn and exit the learning phase.
Cool. And Jean-Pierre's got another point with regards to Google. We outsource this to another agency that I have no contact with, but it would be good for me to have a bit more knowledge and opportunities from an auditing perspective. First off, Jean-Pierre, I'd say reach out to your agency that you don't have contact. You need contact. And if they're not prepared to play ball, then find another agency. I'm not going to sell ourselves here, but speak to me and Benoit at any point. You can find us both on LinkedIn. You can reach out to us. More than happy to help you. There are other tools available as well. So, yeah, we'd be more than happy just to help at any time. Cool. Well, I think that covers it. Alex, sorry, we didn't get into the immediate conversions for a supplemental brand with 15K spend, but I think Benoit answered it from a highish level. If anybody's got any other questions, feel free to drop in.
If you have any questions after the webinar, you need to think about something, just drop us like a message either on LinkedIn or by email, and we'll get back to you.
Yeah, feel free to connect anybody. Anybody got any questions, as just around the general approach to the agentic world? Reach out as well. Thank you for all attending.
Thanks, everyone. It was great to present this to you.
Enjoy the rest
See you
of
next
your day.
time. Bye.
Bye-bye.